Our next speaker, I realized, how much sense her view on how to run a classroom and how to run a school really makes, and that would have really benefited me earlier. So I'm very excited to introduce Barbara Bergström up on stage. But first, before we do that, just have a short look up on the screen for a short intro.
Hon kom till Sverige från USA 1968. Var lärare i naturvetenskap i en kommunal skola när friskolereformen kom år 1992. Sa genast upp sig och startade en skola byggd på ordning, arbetsro, behärskning av engelska språket och höga akademiska ambitioner. Nu driver hon 36 skolor i Sverige med 26 000 elever och ytterligare runt 200 000 står i kö. Har fått flera utmärkelser, årets företagare, årets mäktigaste kvinnliga entreprenör och i våras, årets affärsbragd. Möt Barbara Bergström.
Warm welcome to Barbara Bergström.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was a glorious introduction, I think, and a lot of credit. Well, I think, jag tror nog att en viss person som heter Anders Wall är en enastående entreprenör. Där sitter du. Och jag skulle vilja säga att när vi först träffades på Founders Alliance, do you remember that? Yes. It takes an entrepreneur to understand that you're working on the same wavelength with one another. And I think that's the way we communicated from the beginning. We sat at the same table, we had a lot of things in common, and there was an immediate connection. I think that is one of the attributes of an entrepreneur. And when I see what this gentleman has achieved, what he has done, not just for the students who are here today, but for Sweden as a whole. He comes from humble circumstances, as he was explaining earlier. But what has he done with his life? It's absolutely astonishing. And he is a role model for many, many people, not just those who are aspiring to become entrepreneurs, but to everyone else. I think that you certainly deserve a lot of credit for your achievements. And yeah, I know. I am so glad that the audience agrees with me. Really? Yes. There is a book that's available. My husband wrote it, and what it says at the bottom, Hans and Barbara, that's simply not the case, because I cannot write the way that he does. I have certain talents, but when it comes to writing and expressing myself, my husband often says you go through an exercise of circumlocution until you get to the point. But that book tells us that the struggles that we have had as entrepreneurs, we are not unique. But what is perhaps a unique attribute for people like us is that there's a singular determination. If you fall flat on your face, ladies and gentlemen, you pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get going. You don't allow obstacles of various kinds to get in your way. You overcome them. And that is something that most of you in this audience recognize fully. My personal journey began with our company in 1992 when I resigned from being a teacher I'd been a teacher since 1976. And then when Beatrice Ask signed that document for independent schools to be able to start, I resigned. And just like Anders, well, I didn't have any money either. So how do you get a school started without any money? That does demand determination. At that point in my life, what I did, in those days, in 1992, you had the yellow pages. I don't know if anyone upstairs remembers those, but the yellow pages did exist. So what I did, I sat down with the yellow pages, flipped through the pages as they came along, and I didn't know that many important people. I saw some big names, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a try to see if they can donate by the furniture, electronic equipment, or whatever. I mean, even paper clips. We didn't have anything. But I tried med min finaste svenska och fick absolut ingenting. Det gick inte alls. Även om jag kunde tala svenska någorlunda hyfsat i den tiden också. But then I thought, damn it, I'm going to show them. And I switched over to English, and things started coming. And pretty soon, ladies and gentlemen, we had the entire school furnished. The electronic equipment, including copying machines, everything. And we didn't have to spend a dime. And the money, at that time, the money that we were getting from the state was only 85%. That was changed later. But we did not have any money to get going, and now we actually had a school. And of course, the furniture was office furniture and a little bit bigger. It didn't quite measure up to, the specifications that you would like to see in a classroom setting. But it worked. It worked. We had a school. So, what kind of a school did I want? What kind of a school did we get? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had the unique audacity to use the word discipline. That was really an awful word to use in those days. Because discipline, ladies and gentlemen, discipline implied that you were cracking the whip over the heads of the kids. No. We all know that discipline is a necessity. Discipline is a must. We all know children who have been bullied. We all know children who really say, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. I never know what it's going to meet me. Somebody going like this or like that. And what's going to happen if you go to the bathroom? Is there somebody, in most schools, the restrooms are downstairs. And when you walk down the stairs, is somebody going to say something nasty to you? Do you dare go? I'm sure you recognize those situations. And I felt that discipline, order, is a must. Furthermore, 50% of the teaching has to be in English, because English is the language of the world. And people should not just speak English well, as most people do. But commanding the English language is a necessity. Sweden is a comparatively small country. So if you command the English language, you can go out in the world and be somebody that you want to be. Have high aspirations. It's not a question of, no. It's all right. You don't really have to work so hard. Nah, forget it. Yes, you have to work hard. We believe in you. We know that you can do it. We lift you up to the heavens because we believe in you. And if you have those expectations for the children, they deliver. Trust me, after 25 years, they deliver. And I can really say that those three basic premises, discipline, English, and high expectations, they have led us to, from the very start, to the level of where we are today, because parents trust us. Parents feel that they can leave their children with us and they are safe. And you know yourself as parents, and you know yourself as students when you go to school. You cannot learn anything unless there is an atmosphere of learning surrounding you. But look here. that is quite an impressive curve. And I would like to add that there is 1 year missing, and that's 2001. And at that point in my life, the authorities in Sweden were going to shut me down. They came to my school as inspectors and said, "Oh, no, you don't." And I said, "Oh, yeah?" What I wasn't allowed to do and did, quite simply, was I gave grades from the 6th grade on, 4 times a year. I have always felt that it is a necessity to monitor, to be able to monitor the children, our students, and to let them and the parents know where they are. Now, that was not allowed at the time, obviously. And again, I didn't know that many so-called important people. But there was one person in my school, and that particular person I had established a good relationship with. We knew one another quite well, and I said, "Do you know somebody who could help me? These guys actually mean what they say. They're going to shut me down." And she said, "You know, there's this gentleman at Dagens Nyheter. Han heter då Hans Bergström, och han har haft skolan som en av sina främsta intressen. Call him." I did that. And I was so surprised that I could actually get through to somebody, such a big wheel, you know. He actually was prepared to talk to me. And so I invited him to the school. We sat in the corridors. We got along magnificently. The following weekend, he wrote an article in the paper, in Dagens Nyheter. Nobody had ever said so many nice things about me in my life. So obviously I had to marry the guy, right? I often said, when I look around now, I say I'm looking for a husband, but preferably my own. And I don't know where he is right now. There he is. But it's absolutely necessary to have someone with you who loves you. Because when you are in the position that you're in, as a principal, as a leader, when you walk down that corridor, you smile. And nothing is going to disturb you because you are the leader. And as a leader, you set the tone for what goes around and goes on around you, I should say. And of course, you always have to pay attention to details. In our school, if there is something on the floor, you just don't kick it aside, you pick it up. And that is another thing that, it was so apparent during the first few years, this paradigm, the Rousseauian concept. Leave the kids alone. Don't interfere. And then that is a direct contrast with the broken window syndrome, which is what I just talked about. If you find something on the floor, if there is graffiti on the lockers, take it away. Because if you don't, what's going to happen? More and more and more. And the school, after all, is a workplace. Now let me just go and check my cheat sheet. Where are we on this thing? You see, that's how scary I am. And look at the faces of our principals. They really take me seriously, don't they? But the fact is that our principals are the most precious people in the organization. They have the freedom, they have the authority, and they must, under any and all circumstances, embody who we are. And there used to be a time when Hans and I came back to Sweden that they said, "Who's she going to fire this time?" That's never easy. But you have to make a decision. If somebody doesn't cut it, then you are prolonging the misery. People have to understand the leadership is involved, and yes, you do it with a smile most of the time, but everybody knows you mean business. That's for darn sure. Okay, now, from the time that I didn't have any money and begged for furniture, and as Anders has already indicated, we're now on the stock market, on NASDAQ. The company now is worth somewhere around 3 billion. Wow, wow. But as in all instances, you're not in it for the money. You're in it because you believe in something. You believe in the quality of what you can offer, the quality of your teachers, the quality, first and foremost, of your principals. And we have had a pretty rough ride through the years, not just the one where they were going to shut me down, but those of you who know schools also realize that what I stood for already in 2000 and 2001 and before that, that has now become the norm. That is now what Sweden is doing. And would you believe it? They actually are talking about ordning I klasserna. Wow. What a revelation. Isn't that something? Ordning I klasserna. I couldn't believe that when I first heard it. But I mean, the politicians come to our school and they accuse us of all sorts of things. And I just say, yeah, well, you can see the results. You can see how much we care and what we do, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. But, I mean, they had such stupid ideas. I mean, stupid isn't the right word for it. I could use a few more expletives, but I'm a lady. Among other things, students, not teachers, should determine the curriculum, what was to be taught in the classrooms. How can students determine what they should learn when they don't know it? So I fought against that too. The other thing, use of cell phones. I say no, and I've always said no to use of cell phones. You need to focus. You need to work hard. You need to not just, push buttons on that stupid cell phone. You can use the cell phone at other times. But when you get to class, you put your cell phone in a box, and there it stays until you leave. So there's no temptation of, doing something that I consider to be completely antisocial. People don't know how to talk to one another anymore. Look around you. They're playing with their phones. The art of conversation is totally disintegrating. That's my view. And the other thing, of course, was the dress code. When you are in an environment such as a school, I don't want to see you have it hanging out here or hanging out there. That's not the lesson that you are supposed to be learning. The school is always a workplace. And you're there to make sure that you learn something and not go around, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it often enough yourselves. Well, I think when it comes to what we've been doing for years, and as I just mentioned, my husband established an advisory board consisting of absolutely outstanding Swedish researchers. And they have time and time again said, what you're doing is the right thing. Brain research indicates that learning is an impossibility if you cannot focus, and if you are afraid, and if you think that something will happen to you unexpectedly. The apprehensions that the students feel is not a healthy thing for learning. So that is an environment. Let me see. I should be talking a little faster. Is my time running out? Yeah, okay. Well, you can see that the sagacious advice from a 72-year-old entrepreneur. And When you get to be 72 up there, maybe you can amend these statements a little bit. But I strongly feel that these are essential. If you have an idea, go for it. Don't let them stop you. You know what you want, and overcome those difficulties. When somebody says no, you say, oh yeah, try me. The second, that finn bra medarbetare, that's a very difficult part. And again, it goes back to having the courage to say, our relationship isn't working out. And you have to take that step. And then comes grit. You've heard that word before? It's not grits, it's grit. You know what grits are, don't you? Yeah. But we're talking about grit here. And grit is that singular determination that each and every single entrepreneur possesses. You have to have this ingredient. Don't let anybody stop you. You know what you want. Ultimately, what you are doing is of benefit for society and the greater whole. And quality, if we don't deliver quality, well, then the whole thing goes down the drain quite quickly. And when we were having lunch a little while ago, there were people present who had their children in our school. And whenever somebody says to me, I have my children in your school, I go, I hope it's good. Because you never know. We're not perfect, but we are working very, very hard with this grit, with this determination. And finally, you can read yourself. You must always be honest with yourself and honest with others. One of the many accusations that I have had through my years is that you don't even try to hide it. You know, you go straight towards and say what you think. Well, yes, I do. And to me, it's a necessity. Yeah, and that goes back to the final point here. This is a book I would strongly recommend. And the founder's mentality. The founder's mentality is that sometimes the organization goes astray. Sometimes the administration becomes bloated and they hire people and they hire more people, they delegate here and there. And what comes out is not the quality that we were talking about earlier. The founder's mentality entails that ultimately you go back to your original thought, to the original intention. And that's ultimately the case. So for our future entrepreneurs, this is a book I would strongly recommend. And let me also say the famous words from President Ronald Reagan. And I'm sure many of you recognize that. There's nothing that you cannot achieve if you are prepared to give credit to others. And that is the truth. Yeah. You had a few questions for me.
Yeah, while we were talking, I was drafting my applications for my 3 kids, so can I give it to you here? No? The youngest is 4 months. Hopefully she can get in time.
Yeah, well,
yeah, we'll see.
I think that should be all right.
You can give me a little
Right.
pass through, yeah. Well, I actually had a question. I mean, it's fascinating listening to your story, and I know you're all about teaching and education and entrepreneurship, but my question is, can entrepreneurship be taught, or is it something that you just have innate, you think?
Well, I can't assess that, but I certainly feel that even at a young age, you have that special drive.
Especially at the young age, maybe.
Yeah, and then it's important that the parents foster that drive and not say, oh, this is ridiculous, or why you're doing this and that. There has to be a certain freedom to explore, freedom to learn about yourself. I think that's important.
Yeah, keeping a little bit childish.
Yeah, well, aren't we all?
Hopefully. Hopefully. Actually, I wanted to ask also, Kim, did you have any questions from the audience that
Yes,
that they've
I
written
have
to Barbara?
a question from Oliver, and he's asking you, where do you see yourself in 5 years in the Engelska skolan? Where will it be?
It's very hard. In 5 years from now, we got out on the stock market in 2016. And you probably saw all the things that they had to say about us there in all sorts of metaphors. And, you know, I have not been in favor of going onto the stock market. I have to confess that. For the simple reason that there's an awful lot of bureaucracy involved. I don't like bureaucracy. I want to be able to make decisions and not insider reporting here and there and whatever it takes. I find that, yeah, I'm sure we'll still be on the stock market in 5 years. And my role, hopefully, will continue to be monitoring and mentoring our principals. That's where I see the biggest need arises. Because many of them are young, and they certainly are apprehensive about their own future. So mentoring others, to me, is very vital. And that's, of course, what Anders has been doing for quite a few years by now.
Good. Do we have?
Do you have
Yes,
anything
we have
else?
one more, with, as Alexander is writing, and he's asking you, who inspires you? The biggest inspiration, who's that?
That's a hard one.
Yes.
You know, I think I also hesitate to give advice to young entrepreneurs or to everybody else because there's so much that's inside you that needs to come out. My inspiration has always been that I have a certain Buddhistic tendency, and my aspiration has been the final sentence that do no harm. To me, that's my way of life, and that's what I aspire to, and that has been my inspiration.
Thank you.
Some really good finishing
Yes.
words. Thank you so much, Barbara.
You'll
I think
have a person.
we have some a small gift for you here, Barbara, from Svensk 10. Thank you so much, Barbara Bergström.